Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. We can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It was, like I'm sitting here on Friday and I'm like, man, is it Friday already? That was a really short week. But it was not a short week. When during the week, it did not feel short to me. So, yeah. Anyways, it's been a week. We can say that. Let me fix my light behind me. That bothers me that it's not blue. Okay, let's go to the charts. So yesterday, that CPI, well, they retraced about 50% of it, but then later in the day continued pushing up. I think part of that was that there was an auction, but it's kind of overnight. We've given it all up, and we are now actually below where we were at on CPI. Interestingly enough, I think I have a theory about why, but let's go into it after we do the charts. S&P 500, pretty good jump from yesterday. Copper, no, that's not copper. That's oil. Oil's recovering. Gold and silver doing okay. Oh, actually, big jump there in silver. Interesting. Copper. Okay, so copper has kind of been like all week, and then yesterday, whoosh. I mean, it's we gotta get rid of this thing. Okay, yeah, I mean that's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good in copper actually all of a sudden. And the Japanese yen, similar to the treasuries in that we had a big jump yesterday and they've retraced all of it, and we can see the dollar actually rising a little bit here. Bitcoin, maybe a little bit of a trend forming here. So here's what I think is going on in treasuries. We're topping out before a deflation scare. I think you're on the right track. So, like, one of the things that I've been noticing in the let's not say the yield curve, but like when you look at the short-term treasuries that are like way out there, basically they seem to be suggesting that the chances for rate cuts in 2025 have increased dramatically, but the chances for rate cuts in 2026 have decreased. So the market essentially believes that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates maybe like 2 or 3 times here and then pause again is what's happening. There is a pretty large contingent of people that are concerned about inflation, and that we have not seen the deflation or inflation in the inflation numbers so far, despite it being like, what, 6 months now, is not deterring them, essentially. They think that the inflation is going to come, and they think that rate cuts make that inflation even more likely to come through at some point. Well, I do think that you will see some consumer inflation to an extent if the employment market recovers, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people being out of a job and everybody being scared to leave their job is really, really holding people back from doing any spending. And that is preventing companies from being able to pass any kind of cost increases on to people. So if the labor market became unfrozen somewhat, then it's natural to think that some of that inflation might be able to start coming through at that point. I do think there are some flaws in that, though. Okay. First of all, when you look at like, okay, prices should go up like 20% or something like that because that's what the tariffs were. I think a lot of people started with that kind of line of thinking. But you got to realize that like it gets diced up all of these different places, right? So like the amount that actually gets taxed and like actually results in a price increase is really like quarter to a half. So let's just say half of that. So let's just say, well, the minimum tariff is like 10%, right? So let's just say that's like 5% inflation right there, right? Well, but then you also have to consider that there's like 3 or 4 places in some cases where that cost increase can be shared. We're not going to see it in inflation unless it goes to the consumer, right? But it can go to the American importer and it can go to the exporter in China. And what we're finding is that the exporter in China is eating about half of it and the importer is eating about half of it. So even though I think that you will see some inflation, my own projection or forecast, my own forecast is basically the Federal Reserve's forecast that inflation will continue to run at like 2.53%, something like that. So interestingly enough, I think in the longer run, we'll have to get to this deeper argument that I've been trying to make, which is that high interest rates to deal with cost push inflation doesn't make sense. You keep interest rates high to prevent inflation created by demand pull, created by too much growth. We're in a period of not enough growth. Then all the high interest rates is doing is slowing growth, and it's not going to do anything for inflation. So I think that we need to go down at least 1%, if not 2%, to really get things going. And I also believe that due to artificial intelligence and all of these other sorts of things that are going on, that like some of the true state of the economy is kind of being hidden from us. And we think right now, oh, well, the unemployment rate is really, really low, so things can't be that bad. But I think that you're not seeing the amount of investment that's being killed right now. And that people would be, that they're not, there's a lot of people that are not in the jobs that they should be. You know what I mean? Which is kind of a problem if you think about, if AI is going to automate a lot of jobs and those jobs aren't going to be available anymore, then, and I'm not saying that that's what I think is going to happen, but it is a risk, right? It is a risk. And then what has to happen is you have to reskill those people into something else. And if they're all stuck in like bottom of the barrel jobs, that's not going to happen. Right? So really all you're doing in that situation is holding the United States back in terms of growth and disadvantaging us in a super critical time for the development of nations as we move into a new era. It's kind of like, what if we went back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and kept the United States in a recession at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution? Would we have become the nation that we did? Maybe not, right? This is what I'm concerned about. So now Donald Trump is trying to kind of change the makeup of the Federal Reserve, primarily because he thinks that the Federal Reserve is biased against him. I'm starting to wonder with some of the things that Powell, like the attitudes and things that Powell says, like it just doesn't make sense to me He did a 50 basis point cut when things were like not as bad as they are now. And now it's like we had to pull you kicking and screaming. And I'm worried that on Wednesday, when we have the Federal Reserve press conference, that he's going to be hawkish again and that they're going to sell off after that. So, with all that in mind, it kind of makes sense that one of the plays people would make is, okay, now we're absolutely certain that we're going to get the rate cut on Wednesday. Now is the time to sell the rates, right? Or to take profits on your winners. I think that's what's happening. That or the people responsible for buying it up this week off of the news don't want to hold it. There's also is a lot of movement in the yield curve. By the way, on this little, on the open, we had a little bit of a move down. There was some steepening on that. So now, Rox also says PPI has me thinking deflation in the pipeline. That could be, although I would warn on that one that I expect to see wild fluctuations in inflation numbers during this time. Like, it's going to be very volatile. And so it was, it was a shock when I saw the number because I wasn't expecting it. But at the same time, it is in line with something that I've said many, many times, is that you're going to see 1 month, you're going to see the inflation number that's kind of high, and then the next month you're going to see one that's unusually low, right? And because what's really happening is you're getting like a sinusoidal sort of thing as it tries to stabilize. So that's what I think that was. And the month before we had like a 0.8 print, right? So it makes sense that there would be like a little bit of a reversion there. By the way, Rock, so that's a new name, so welcome to the stream. Well, it is a Friday. Fridays tend to be difficult trading for me. And let's see here. We do have the sentiment and inflation expectation prints. Let's see. What are they expecting? They're expecting 4.7% for 1-year inflation preliminary and 3.4% for 5-year inflation preliminary. That is... Well, I wouldn't read too much into those numbers because we know that they're nonsense, but... Last month it was 4.8. Come on, it's got to come back more than that. I don't know. Well, let's come over and check and see if there's any developments in them trying to find Charlie Kirk's killers. Trump says Charlie Kirk assassin in custody. I think with a high degree of certainty we have him in custody. Okay. Somebody close to the subject turned him in. Trump says the suspect's father turned him in to a U.S. Marshal. Well, okay, so I think the reason why he's saying with a high degree of confidence is because they arrested 3 other people that they thought was the killer, only to realize that it wasn't them. One of the people, the one at the beginning that was like the old man, was probably a distraction. Unclear if he was like involved or not, but I'm kind of could very easily see a leftist saying, oh, it's me, to help a killer get away, even if they didn't know who the killer was, you know? So I think that's why he's saying with a high degree of confidence, and he's telling that story. It is kind of a little weird though, that it gets announced on Fox and Friends when Trump gets interviewed. It's a little weird, don't you think? Well, that's on Zero Hedge. I want to see what Patriots.win says, because they're a little bit more like, what should I say, on the cutting edge of what's happening, right? Like, I usually find breaking news there first. Not on Twitter, surprisingly enough. But. Although the problem on Twitter is really more like filtering, right? What's this? Senate Republicans in a unanimous 53-45 vote invoke the nuclear option, cutting the confirmation threshold from 60 to 51 and stripping Chuck Schumer and the Democrats of their power to block President Trump's nominees. Well, I kind of think that one had to happen. I really, as much as I would love to do that if it was like a Democrat president and whatnot, whenever it's been the other way around, Republicans didn't do that. But there are some government positions that need to be filled, and allowing the other party to just completely stymie and undermine your government for the whole term is not a viable option. So I do feel that things are better if, you have a 55-60 majority. But that could have some wider implications. So it's a little disconcerting to me. Okay, so let's read their thread. They're very public exit. So one of the weird things that Charlie Kirk promoted, and I wouldn't say that it was like a serious belief of his that like he had really thought through and believed really strongly or anything like that, but it was kind of something that was more like they were just kind of shooting the bull on a podcast or something. And he was saying that he thinks that executions should be public. Well, let me remind you though, in Utah, we do have the death penalty. But we don't just have the death penalty. We have the death penalty by shooting squad. And it's been a while since I've looked into this, but my vague recollection is that they pick 5 people that are like have some connection to the victims, and maybe police officers that worked on the case and things like that. And they have like 5 of them, but like only one has the bullet, so that there's no way to know which person actually shot. They all have blanks and only one has the bullet, so there's no way to tell which one actually shot them. But it's conceivable that, given the death penalty and everything, that the killer is killed in the exact same way that Charlie Kirk was. They all decide to aim at the neck. Actually, I don't think they do that. I think they all aim for the heart. But I've heard stories that like something happened and like the person with the bullet didn't hit them where they needed to, and they had to let the criminal bleed out. That's happened before, apparently. And it's this big controversial thing because in Mormonism believes that like if you why am I talking about this? I shouldn't. I really shouldn't be talking about this, should I? Well, I'll finish it because now it's getting into weird shit. Okay. Mormons believe in blood atonement, which is like if you've killed somebody, that's a serious sin that you can't just go to the priest and say, I'm sorry, and then you're forgiven for it. Mormons believe that, like, that's a more serious sin and that more serious things have to happen for you to atone for that. And one of the things is that you have to die by your own blood being shed. That's why they allow execution by firing squad. So that now you can pick. I think you get to pick. So that I think the killer would have to pick to be death by firing squad. Yeah, that's right. So he probably, and this guy probably wouldn't. But you pick, and that's why you pick death by firing squad, is so that your blood is shed. That's why Utah has it. I know, it's weird. I mean, it seems weird, but I don't know, it makes sense to me. Like last cigarette and then blindfold, yes. Yeah. Ugh. The whole thing is grisly, man. The whole thing is grisly. Like seriously, I mean, it's kind of a little weird to say like this huge cultural moment. Should it be happening because of, like, you know, what the killer believed or what the victim believed, or, you know, things like that? I think in a lot of people's mind, that should be like the determining factor of whether or not something has a larger cultural impact or not. But the reason, one of the main reasons I think that this is having the cultural impact that it did, is because it was so graphic. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, but I think this is the first time that I've seen wide distribution of something so graphic. Of somebody that we all kind of know. Like, everybody that's been on TikTok has seen a video of Charlie Kirk at least once. The kids really know Charlie Kirk. So, like, so that's another thing. When I was talking about yesterday, like, I don't feel like that everybody realizes how significant this actually could be culturally. Is that the high school kids are already pretty conservative, and now they've seen that. It's gonna scar them for life. Nick Evans says the suspect is now in custody. I wish I was getting some more info. Well, it's not like I don't believe Trump, but I want to hear from the authorities why they feel, because obviously the administration. Yeah, maybe it is that I don't believe him. I do believe him, though. He wouldn't lie about this, and I think they've had enough foibles. He wouldn't announce it in that way if it wasn't true. But it's just you've seen that the administration is very motivated to get this guy arrested as quickly as possible. And I guess the thing about it that is a little bit, to me, like, okay, is that I fully expected that this guy would not go in willingly. Or rather, he would not go back in alive. So that his dad just took him to a U.S. Marshal is a little shocking to me. Wait, this is twice. When was the other? Are you just talking about when there was an attempt on Donald Trump? Okay, yeah, sure. Because with Donald Trump, the whole thing was that they kind of did try to secure the roofs, and like people said, hey, this is a security risk, this is a security risk, and there was like some incompetence there. There was like some people saying, no, we can't have a person on the roof there, it's not safe. Like there is this whole scandal that's kind of popped up a little bit in the media, but didn't get very wide coverage. That's it, because it's honestly, it's kind of suspicious, right? As to why that area wasn't secure when there was the attempt on Donald Trump. But when it comes to Charlie Kirk has a security detail for sure. But like, I think that his security detail is like 2 or 3 guys or something like that, you know? and it's just going to be like one guy up on stage close to him, and like they don't have this full-on security apparatus set up to monitor all of the roofs and things like that. I really don't think that was something that they were considering. And I think that because this is like a grassroots organization and things like that, they don't have infinite money. They're going to rely very heavily on local law enforcement to do things and the school to do things, right? And I don't think there's ever been a case where like somebody was speaking at a university and there was an assassination. I mean, now in the future there will be. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm telling you, man, it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing among conservative influencers to go and speak where Charlie Kirk was shot. I'm kind of waiting for it to happen. Like I'm sure it's going to be something like I can conceive something where like Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and a bunch of other conservative influencers decide to have a joint event there, and it will just be massive. And there will be so many people, because Utah's a very conservative state. There's going to be so many people there. A big order there at 10. And a big order there at 08. Although the one at 08 doesn't really surprise me. But that one at 10 is a little odd. Yeah. And when they do that, number one, I won't be there because I'm terrified, to be honest with you. Yeah, actually, I'm not terrified that like if I went to an event like that something bad would happen, or that if something bad happened that I would be in particular danger or anything like that. But I am concerned that like going to that would make me feel squeamish and pass out. It's a weird thing. I tell you what, man, it's the weirdest experience to like, you don't think of yourself in that way, and then your body just does stuff without your permission, you know? It's really weird. I don't know. It'll be a weird thing because it's going to happen. And I bet you there's going to be people there protesting and making fools of themselves too. But we'll say, so there's one other thing I wanted to address on this, just because, I don't know, I kind of half expected Uzi to dive into the conspiracy theories around it, but because a lot of people on Patriots.win in particular are like really upset about how long it took to find the killer, you know? And there was a rumor going around that it was like a targeted assassination from another state. Like people were saying maybe Ukraine or Israel called in the assassination. And this falls in line with a lot of people saying that it must have been an expert shot. Well, I do feel like that to hit somebody at 200 yards, you have to know what you're doing, but you don't have to be an expert. Okay. Israel, like Netanyahu, like straight up addressed it overnight. Isn't that crazy? Like a journalist asked him, and he straight up said Israel is not responsible for Charlie Kirk's death in any way. Isn't that crazy? It really makes me wonder. Like, well, some people were like, well, that must mean they for sure did it. Well, no, I don't think so. But I'm kind of wondering if something got passed around the intelligence community, that there was some report speculating that it was Ukraine or something like that, you know? A closest thing to a conspiracy theory I have about it is that the shooter isn't a trans leftist, possibly Gropier. Well, yeah, so so the other thing, you know, here with the, like, do they have the shooter in custody? I want a name. All of the people on the Donald are convinced that it's this certain person, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't think that's it. You have a name. Tyler. Okay, that sounds suspiciously familiar. Where did you get that? Oh, I see right here on this page. 22 years old. His family and a pastor turn him. Oh, man. Because there was that whole thing about, like, the ATF report that there was, like, trans ideology stuff on the gun and everything, and people saying that, you know, it was a trans shooter. But you know, once they released the pictures of the guy, I was kind of like, I don't think that's a trans person. Wait, what do you mean by, I've honestly never seen that term. Our group of alt-right white nationalists and Christian nationalists. Oh. Ah. I see what you're saying. You're thinking, like, what would be the most ironic thing for it to happen? That it would be actually a far-right nationalist that thought that Charlie Kirk was too moderate. Yeah. That would be incredibly ironic. But I think highly unlikely, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know, man. So here's the thing. I don't know how, but I'm going to bet you that the particulars of Utah County culture are going to come into play into this guy's motivations. And this whole, like, what you called race realists is not really a thing in Utah. It's something that like people in Utah really intentionally try to just be oblivious to those things, which doesn't make them, you know, I think some people have this idea that, like, well, if I'm just completely oblivious to all sorts of race relations and issues, then there's no way that I can possibly be
Order
racist.
canceled.
But I don't think it turns out that way. I think that it ends up people being ignorant and doing a lot of dumb things and not really realizing how dumb they are. I think it's more to do with Kirk being Trump's ground game and that got him elected, maybe. There's one thing I know everyone knows, really. It's that hyper-religious, cloistered societies like yours are absolutely bursting with secrets and willful ignorance. Yep. Like one of the things when you're talking about cultural issues like these, because I think that people have this tendency to see a problem and then say, okay, what's the problem? It's X thing, and that's the problem. It's X thing, right? But really, when you look at it, it's the whole system. It's the whole. You have to look at the whole system. There are dozens, hundreds of factors in why a society behaves the way that it does. And there's all sorts of things about local culture and customs and education and how people are raised that will lead people to adopt certain strategies, and then all of those interactions together will lead to emergent behavior that you might never expect from the base level interactions, and we're often not aware of. That's why you can do these things like take somebody from another culture and put them into a more wealthy culture, for instance, and they're not necessarily successful. And people will say, well, it's because they're degenerate, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, that's not necessarily true either. But it's just too complicated to completely, it's beyond our understanding, I think. That's why I am very, very weary of people that want to come in and make very, very fundamental changes to our society like that. Anybody that is that confident about a change of that magnitude, it has to be completely ignorant of the science about it. So once you understand the science about it, you realize that we really are just not equipped at this time. Our understanding and our science on these sorts of things is in its infancy, and we are just not good at making decisions about whether these things will be good or not. And so we kind of have to take this cautious approach of, we're going to try it in one area and see how it goes. And then it's not just like you do a test in a city and then it's good and then we put it across the whole country. No, it needs to organically spread because it was a good idea. So in Utah, we get a lot of that where it's like, well, I don't like the LDS church and I don't like how XYZ thing works. And if we just changed XYZ thing, then everything would be better. But it's way more complicated than that. But I think you're going to find a lot of people in Utah having insight about the culture and what this guy might have been thinking. If we have a name, then surely everybody is going and checking his online activity, right? He's there now. Also, did they turn him in late last night? Because it's kind of a little bit too early to drive into the police station, don't you think? It's only 7 o'clock. Sorry, what was the name again? Tyler. So I'm expecting there to be a thread with the guy's name here on Patriots, but If I search for his name. Oh, well, okay, here's something 14 minutes ago. the top the top result for his name on Google right now is the Tyler Robinson Foundation, founded by Imagine Dragons to fight childhood cancer. Something tells me they're going to change the name of their organization. Oh, man. That means that I'm probably not going to find something just doing a simple Google search, but there's already the Hinduistan Times. Dun, 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 dun. This doesn't have any information about him. I really should be ashamed of myself here. Like every time that there's a big shooting and everything on this stream, been really good at like, okay, we can maybe say something about it, but we're not going to focus on it too much and we'll move on. And I really careful to not say anything too much until we really know what's going on. And I try to not give the killer much attention. And with this one, it's just all bleh, everywhere, right? Like, I'm completely captivated by it. I want to see this guy given the death penalty. I want to know who he is and what he was thinking. And he was taken into custody at 11 p.m. That's safe. That makes more sense. I should be coming over here to new. Okay, the New York Post is reporting it as well. Or the New York, I think that maybe the New York Post may be the origin of the name. Quick, go find his Reddit account. Oh, okay. So there is going to be a news conference in 15, 20 minutes at the bottom of the hour here. The emotions are tough. It is like the thing that's weird for me. So if you missed this story yesterday, I didn't really go into like full storytelling mode. I don't know if it's really that interesting of a story, but I have not been like a Charlie Kirk follower or anything like that. It's always kind of been, why does TikTok keep showing me this guy? But maybe he's had one or two videos I've seen that I was like, oh yeah, that's really insightful. That's a good way of putting it. That sort of a thing. I kind of tend to have this thing where it's like all other influencers are awful except for me, because I'm the only good person in the world, of course. Maybe that's my narcissism or something. I don't know, but I really don't like following other, especially in the political sphere. There's always like this hint of like something that they have that makes me feel uncomfortable associating with a movement like that. Even though I think that I would really like to get more involved in kind of political thought again, but anyways, so he's always just in my mind kind of been like a B tier Republican influencer, which I think was unfair. He's had much larger impact than I was. Even though I knew those things, I didn't really sit and think about it and realize, wow, this guy is actually more important than I thought. Right? But when I saw the video of him getting shot, like the close-up, man, it did something to me. I was like, wow, that's like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, he's definitely dead, right? And once I got past the intellectual curiosity of is he alive or not, and realizing that he's dead and like processing that, then I started to think about the whole, like, and even saying this kind of triggers me a little bit. Just the whole, like, if you're shot and the feeling of like all of your blood leaving you. As my dad also had a blood clot recently, and thinking about getting a blood clot also makes me feel woozy like that. And I'm like, oh man, I need to stand up, go for a walk or something, get the blood going, because I have a tendency to have what they call vasovagal episodes, where like your vagus nerve gets triggered and causes your blood pressure to just drop. So I'm trying, like, sitting here talking, squeezing my fist, things like that, keep the blood pressure up, and so that I can think about this without passing out in front of you. But yeah, I got up to go for a walk, and I'm like, this doesn't, I'm starting to feel a little bit more woozy than I should. I'm starting to see my vision is like it's affecting my vision. So I'm going to go sit down. Yeah, if I go sit down in my chair, that way, you know, and like lay back like I'm going to go to sleep, then if I pass out, I won't hurt myself. And like, maybe nobody will notice. Maybe nobody will notice and it'll be fine. And I think I might have even like closed my eyes and like thought like going to sleep. But next thing I know, I'm like screaming in my head and jolting awake. So and my boss, who sits next to me, was holding my head. I was still and like helping me come to the ground. Like, I think that he saw me jolting, grabbed my head, and then took me out of the chair. He's a big guy. Yeah. So it's straight up, it made me pass out. So it's not like I feel like I have some strong connection to Charlie Kirk or anything. It's not like I think in my mind that those things are really gross and I actively avoid seeing those things. I've seen plenty of snuff before, man. But something about that situation, and maybe there could be other factors involved. I've been carrying a lot of stress this past year. I'm getting older. I take some medications that kind of increase my blood pressure a little bit. I passed out. It made me pass out. You know? Just thinking about what he felt as he was dying makes me sick and queasy. Well, I think that he probably only had a split second of sensation and then he was gone. He'll maybe go to prison for up to 2 years before he's released on parole for capital murder? No. Okay, even if it was like in New York, capital murder, which is like, okay, there's all this planning involved in everything, involved in going to kill somebody. Large, because when it comes to murder, motivation behind it makes a big difference as to what level of murder it is and how long you're going to go away for and things like that. If it was New York or somewhere like that, then maybe you would get like, 35 to life or something like that, right? But not Utah. He's going to get the death penalty. Without question. In five years from now, you'll see another news. There'll be a big news story about them executing him. And there'll be this whole big, because every time that a prominent criminal is executed in Utah, this doesn't happen every day. But every time that it does happen, there's tons of media hubbub about it. Because it's controversial that we still have the death penalty. He's going to get the death penalty. Yeah. You know, like in my mind, death is too kind of a sentence for him, you know? But something yeah, we have enough other murderers out on the street, it doesn't matter. Oh, I think that the administration would probably have something to say. Like this is one of those things where it's like when the president of the United States is involved in like, you know, a manhunt and everything. Kind of a different thing, you know? But geez. Yeah, so this is one of those things where it's like, you know, I just kind of have like these gut feelings on these things, and I am not one to really like share my gut, especially not on political issues like that, because you can just be so wrong and you end up looking stupid, right? So I'm saying this with the caveat of I don't know what's going on, but I have this inkling, like probably he is a leftist and all of that, but I kind of think that this kid might be very seriously regretting what he did. Like, I can very easily see a 22-year-old thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to go and do this political assassination and I'll be a hero to all of these different groups of people and famous and everything. And then going and doing it and pulling the trigger and you know, at first just kind of being in the shock of it, but then afterwards going, wow, I killed somebody. Maybe I shouldn't have killed somebody. But then running away and getting away and then finding out, wow, this was a much larger thing than I thought it was going to be. And very, very much starting to regret what he did. So, something about the way that, and they say it was a minister, kind of sounds to me like the dad found out and then he told the bishop and then they turned him in. And that it was a Mormon bishop is probably what that was, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to read these things. Wait, he's not dead? Right? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I can't believe that he was taken in alive. Was he a registered? I really want to know. I'm gonna bet you no. At 22, he might not be registered with the party, or he might be registered as a Republican and like had more recently become far left. Like that's a common thing in Utah, right? Like there's a lot of people where it's like you can kind of tell when they're in school, they seem left leaning, but they don't really come out until they're in school, until they're in university. Yeah, I see the name. Wait, is it Robert? I think it was Robinson. Wherever I'm seeing it's Robinson. But I've yet to see anybody post anything like, oh, I found his social media account, or probably it's all scrubbed already. Yeah, at 11, if he turned himself in at 11 p.m. last night, they already told the social media companies. Yeah. But it's going to be one of those things where, like, if he had any kind of a social media presence, there's going to be people in Utah that knew him, right? So, but the first thing is that the people that because there were going on, 4chan has already found out who the killer is, and there's a lot of people posting that over and over again. Well, that wasn't him. That was wrong. Okay. Okay, here's a picture. I sure hope that this doesn't turn into another one of those, well, we don't really know what his motivation was sort of a thing. That drives me crazy. I hate that one, no comments on that one. It's kind of weird to be like right there on like we're probably finding out the guy's name sooner than like 99% of people, right? So like we're the part of that first group of people that are like furiously running around trying to find stuff. I bet you if you go to Facebook you're gonna find like a Tyler Robinson, but like that isn't actually them, and people saying, is this him? No, it's not him. There we go. 3 mutual friends in Utah. Lives in Salt Lake City. Firefighter. Doesn't look like him. Isn't somebody that's active either. It's an older guy. People at the University of Utah. They got this picture, though. That must mean that somebody found some sort of a social media. Yeah, Twitter would be dropping his whole life at this point, and I see nothing. Yeah. Although, like, do we really see that anymore? Because, like, honestly, people don't post on Facebook that much, and a lot of profiles are just completely locked down. You can't see anything anyways. Yeah. 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 Very controlled release. Well, let's give it some time. I'm sure what'll Okay. Press conference is going to start. I'm not going to show press conference though. I'm going to bet you that I go and drive into work, and by the time I get into work, there's going to be stuff all over Patriot Stalwin about who he is, you know? No, I mean, you really want me to? I think you should just pull it up yourself. Yeah. I mean, where even are we going to see it? That's a question. Let's see your Kirk press conference. The other thing is I bet you that it's going to be one of those things where like we pull it up and they don't start the press conference for like 30 minutes, you know? Isn't that how those always go? Oh, okay. FBI director. Okay, I have it pulled up. If they come out and start talking, maybe we'll go. You know what? Actually, maybe they've already done this deep dive on his life, and they will tell us about his motivations in the press conference. Because, you know, it looks, the stream that I found is FBI Director Kash Patel holds news conference. So if Kash knew something about who he was, you know, the possible political motivations he had, I think he'd want to say something about it. Maybe we'll find out during that. But I'm gonna bet you with 70% certainty that I will be gone before they actually start the press conference. It's tough. I'm trying to be lighthearted, but like it's very serious. This whole thing is very serious. And very, I don't like thinking about it. So I kind of feel like we gotta be a little lighthearted with that to not let it pull us down, you know? It's also not necessarily a good thing to be pulled into the social media news cycle like this, you know? The photo is kind of a weird photo. It's just like him standing in his room. Who takes a photo like this? It is kind of weird. That's one of the comments here on Patriots that win. Looks like a dorm room. Yeah, that's probably is a UVU student. Okay, that was interesting. What was that about? We still got 30 minutes. Well, it wasn't the S&P 500 open. And keep an eye on this. Something might happen here. Definitely some selling of the bonds here. Did we talk? I just did. I did talk about trading. Treasuries are down, and there was a bunch of big orders just slammed into 09 out of nowhere. Ooh, I should come over here and I should. One of the things here is that the name of the killer is probably a really common name. Probably a really common name. I think there's going to be a lot of people named Tyler getting harassed today for no good reason. Okay, here's somebody else pulling out a picture. Oh, they found the Facebook of family. I'm from Colombia. What was it? Daniel Rios Oquendo. I'm from Colombia. I noticed that not many traders on YouTube use the DOM. Why do you think that is? Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why. One is that the data costs money, and most people that are coming in and doing trading are trying to spend as little money on their platform and their setup as possible. I'm a little bit more serious. I've been doing this for a long time, and so, you know, the fees for my platform and the data is all just kind of part of the operation. But because it costs money, it's not very common in general. Like retail traders are kind of like, oh, that looks cool, but I've never gotten into it because I can't afford the data, right? And so for somebody that's streaming, it's not really worth it to them to just stream it. When you put the DOM on there, it actually just kind of scares people because they don't understand that. You put a chart and they're like, oh, I understand the chart. I can make sense. But when you just have a bunch of numbers on there, it's so foreign that they don't really get interested in it. Where in Colombia are you from? Yeah, Colombia is like the country Colombia. Because if so, that's crazy. Because that's there's not many people there that would find their way to my stream. You know, so I'm so glad to meet you. I don't think it's the money. It's just most people can't. I mean, it is kind of the money. It is kind of like the whole shebang ends up costing like $50 a month. It's the country. I remember when I was much younger and I went to like a church youth camp, and there was this girl that was from Colombia, and her family was very wealthy. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to come up to Utah, you know. And she talked about like having to have security to go anywhere in Colombia, and it sounded like a crazy place. It didn't sound like a place where I would expect to find a lot of traders. But you know, places probably changed a lot since I talked to them. Streamers are rich AF. Yeah, I wish. I guess to some extent, maybe I'm rich, but not AF. And not from streaming. Definitely not from streaming. Oh man, this honestly, sometimes it does grate on me. Every once in a while, I'll start thinking like, man, I have put so much time and effort into this stream, and I have not gotten nearly as much back. I'm really grateful. Like, I really think that having you guys here every day is worth it. It's totally worth it, but it's a lot of time. It's kind of funny to me, like, yeah, like Patrick Wayland, he's made bank from it for sure. if you're willing to lie about your trading and give people false impressions about how profitable trading really is, and then you can get super rich. Yeah. Off of YouTube. The father recognized Robinson from FBI release photos and oh my. Okay. The father recognized Robinson from the FBI related photos and video, noting a distinct limp from a recent injury. He confronted him and obtained a confession. The family then contacted authorities, possibly involving a local church leader, for support, and detained Robinson until law enforcement arrived. President Trump confirmed the arrest on Fox News, Fox and Friends, stating it happened just minutes before his interview and crediting the tip from somebody very close to him, the father who convinced Robinson to turn himself in. Investigation and motive as of September 12th. Robinson is in custody and being questioned, but formal charges are pending. A press conference is expected later today. The motive remains under investigation, but appears politically motivated. Given the context of the event and the inscriptions on the recovered rifle, authorities have ruled out 2 initially detained individuals and confirmed no ongoing threat to the public. Yeah. Well, that was a little bit more information. Okay, so that's really interesting to me that they found video of him on campus and everything, and they were doing everything they could to try and find, where he went to that way, and then they couldn't find out who he was, so they put it out to the public, and it was his father seeing the pictures, which is what led to the arrest. That's a little bit from the perspective of like the law enforcement doing it, I'm sure that they tried hard, but it was probably disappointing that that's how they found him. Well, I don't know where they're pulling him from, but people on Twitter are finding pictures of him, man. There are a lot of streamers in Colombia. So I'm going to bet, though, that it's going to be mostly cryptocurrency stuff. That's the other thing. Cryptocurrency stuff ends up being super common outside the United States. I don't think that my kid would ever do such a thing, but I can only imagine that kind of an experience, like, can you imagine I'm sitting here going through all this stuff. Okay, here they have the photo of the shooter. Oh wait, that's my son. Oh, that would be so. I can only imagine what they're going through. That is crazy. That is crazy. So most of the stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter so far is just people pointing out, like, yeah, he has the same shoes. This is definitely the guy. Let's see if ZB hits 01 before the news release. That's interesting. Why do you think that we're moving down? 'Cause I was not able to find a, especially those big orders that came out. I don't know. Was there like a stop run there? This is kind of interesting. You day trade futures off of 5-minute candle charts, no DOM at all. Well, so I wouldn't say that you have to have the DOM to trade, but I think that if you're trading on short time frames and you don't have the DOM up, that you don't really see what's going on, because there's a whole game that's being played in here, and knowing how many contracts it took to lift that each tick to move it up really matters as to how the whole thing ends up playing out. And I really think that what most people are doing is like they're pulling up a 1 or a 5-minute chart, and then they're looking for chart patterns. Like price action is a big thing, which is mostly comparing where price is now to where it was in the past. A lot of people look for like head and shoulders patterns or higher highs, lower lows. A lot of price action people do the higher highs, lower lows thing. Maybe they're using moving averages and stuff, right? And the problem with all of that is that on short time frames, price is very, very random. It is from a statistical perspective. So you can go and look at all of the empirical research released in universities and so forth. And basically, short-term prices are martingales, which is to say that there's nothing in the past price history that is effective at predicting the next move. Now, the problem is that it's so random that you can have reasonable levels of success just from sheer dumb luck. And there are some effects where it's kind of like maybe because that strategy is starting to become more popular, or it was kind of working, other people start trading it too. And like a little bit of people trading it kind of helps the strategy and you make money. But then everybody blabs about it and it gets too big, and then it's a net negative. And so you'll see a lot of people will have success. And I've seen, the longest I've ever seen is like 2 or 3 years. You see people, they'll get 2 or 3 years and then just randomly blow up, right? It's always look at the person that seems to be the most consistent, the most successful, and they're usually the next guy to blow up. And then they'll say, oh, it was just my emotions got the best of me. It was an unusual situation because there was some news event or something like that, right? And they blame it on themselves, not realizing that that's just kind of the fat-tailed nature of the market. So there was never actually any edge to the strategy. They just didn't have enough data, right? Now, if you've been doing it for 5 years, then I want to know how you did it. 5 years is my threshold where I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to what they're doing, right?
Order canceled.
But there is no empirical evidence supporting the methods behind price action and chart reading on short time frames. Now part of the issue here, because you would think like, well, if that's true, then why are all of these people trying to day trade? Well, because what happened was there was some big edge to be had, and still to be had, I guess you could say, that on higher time frames. Like a momentum strategy is something where you run moving averages and things like that on daily charts across the portfolio of assets. And when you do it across a portfolio of assets, there are some interesting statistical consequences that come about from that give you a really amazing performance. Bigger drawdowns, but better Sharpe ratio in the end. And what happened was that people thought that all time frames are the same, and so they misappropriated something to intraday trading on a single asset. Yeah. I swing trade stocks and options with it? Oh, okay. That might be a different thing. So like one thing is if you're looking at stocks and you're doing a scanner based on certain technical properties, right? Then that's a different thing. That's more like the momentum portfolios that I was talking about. Okay. But if you just come in here and you say, I'm going to trade the 10-year treasury every day, and I'm going to look at the 5-minute chart to make all of my decisions, you're probably not going to be successful over a 5-year period. Or another way of putting it is, prices are martingales, so there's nothing in the price history, past price history, that is effective at predicting the future price movements. But there is a tendency, particularly among commodities, to trend over very, very high time frames. We're talking like months and years. Okay, so if you construct a portfolio that is basically like, when something starts to shift into a new trend and you jump on that trend immediately, you will lose most of the time. So it's not an effective predictor of anything. So it doesn't happen most of the time. And you're just taking every time that it happens. But with the right profit-taking strategy, you will catch some moves that are so big that it just makes up for everything else. Right? That's how it works. So you can take advantage of that with stocks. You can scan for certain patterns to kind of identify stocks that are maybe at the start of those trends. And then you can, even though you're not going to hold it for days or months, you can be getting in before all of those guys that are going to jump on board it for their momentum portfolios to hold it for months. Right? So that's why that's like a slightly different sort of a thing. But again, if you're like, well, I'm just going to pick which stock I want to trade today, but I'm going to use price action to determine where to get in and out and everything, probably the price action isn't doing anything, right? Like the thing that's making you money is you're good at identifying which stocks are going to be moving that day. Man, I have a window here on my tweet deck for Tyler, and there's so much stuff coming through about him now, but none of it is actually about him. It's just people mentioning his name. Oh, I just heard something on the news squawk about TikTok. China talking about TikTok. Patriots.win is getting slow now. They have a pin post about him yet? Oh, it's going really slow. Thanks for talking about this with me. Oh, no problem. I don't know. The thing is that people don't like to hear this. So it's really weird for you to be saying thank you. You know? The response I always get is, well, it works for me. I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm like, okay, come back in 2 years. I've had a number of experiences, particularly on Reddit, where I say this stuff and somebody decides to fight me really, really hard. They're convinced that they've figured it out, right? And they'll be really, really arrogant about it. So this thing is that the kind of person that's like kind of like a narcissist, psycho, like dark triad traits, tends to be like really confident of themselves, and they think highly of themselves because they've made money. And so when you tell somebody that's made money and thinks highly of themselves because they've been a successful trader, that their success was mostly luck, they react very angrily, right? And so I've had a couple of experiences where people like had really big, very mean arguments with me on Reddit about it. And then like a year later came back and said that they were wrong and that they blew it. And it's happened to be more than once. You're a pro, so yeah, well, I wouldn't consider myself pro. I think what we do here is amateur. I don't work for a large bank or a hedge fund or anything like that. So I'm not a professional. I like your background music. Yeah, this is Stream Beats by Harris Heller. You can go to streambeats.com and check out all of their things. It's basically, there's a guy here in Utah put up this music that was like royalty free so that you could play it on streams like this and have background music and not get hit for copyright infringement. That's what it is. Oh, here's they do have a pin thread. Yeah, pretty cool. Treasuries are still at where they were at. They still, hey, I said that they wouldn't start the press conference before I had to go. I'm a fortune, or what is it called? I'm Nostradamus. I can see the future. Oh wait, they're gonna start it. Are they moving out? They're gonna start it here? No. Nope. They're just, you know, turning around to show you all of the people in the press room. Well, we'll see if there's anything interesting when I get to work, I guess. I should try and, I'm not quite sure. I'm kind of in a I just finished a major task at work and now I'm gonna move on to the next task and I'm not sure what that looks like. It's gonna be it's one of those places where it's hard to stay focused. So I gotta stay focused today. All right, guys. Anyways, I'm just yapping. It's time for me to go. I will see you guys on Monday. I think here this week was pretty good. I want to keep streaming, even though I really want to spend more time on the platform. But you know what? The kids are going to be home this weekend. So maybe I can just task them with watching the toddlers and I can work on it. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I want to go on. I'm getting into boomerangs. My boomerang's supposed to be here on Saturday because I got this one and it didn't work very well. So I'm getting another one on Saturday that's not made out of foam. And yeah, maybe we'll do that. Stay excellent, team.